Hello, lovely audience. This is Paul Frields, one of the hosts of Practical Bass. I just want to let you know the episode coming up is maybe a little less about bass playing and a bit more about having a new experience as a musician. You're going to hear a little bit about the way that Dave and I spent the time between season 1 and season 2. This episode runs a little bit longer than our normal ones. It's closer to an hour, and I hope you'll stick with it. It was a lot of fun for us to relive and record, and I hope it'll be fun for you to listen to and maybe be inspired a bit by. And with that, let's get to the show.
Please listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
And this is Practical Bass, a weekly podcast in which my co-host Dave and I find a topic of interest to you, the working bass player, and we sort of dissect it, look at it from a few different angles, and hopefully help you use that knowledge to elevate your gigs and your gear to the next level. If you are interested in becoming part of our community, it's very easy to do that. You can find our Facebook group, the Practical Bass Group. You are also welcome to check out our website at practicalbass.com, and you can send us feedback there. You can also find an archive of all of our past episodes and download to your heart's content. It is absolutely free. In fact, you can also subscribe to this podcast very easily using iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Stitcher Radio on your mobile device or your laptop or desktop computer. Simply search for Practical Bass and then use the subscribe link, and you'll get a fresh copy delivered to you weekly without having to lift one little pinky on your hand. And we would love to hear from you. If you would like to send us some feedback, please visit the feedback section on practicalbass.com and let us know what you think, good, bad, or indifferent. We love to read your listener comments, and we look forward to getting mail like that all the time. And I think today, Dave, we're going to kind of kick off season 2 for real today, right?
Season 2, episode 1.
Yeah, this is the real thing. Like, we did a tease, but this is actually the beginning of the season. And,
right.
One of the things that we wanted to share with you, our listeners, is a little bit about why we were off the air for a little bit following the USA Thanksgiving holidays. We were basically out from about December to the end of April. During April, we've done some recording, we've done some preparation, but hopefully you're hearing this in the beginning of May. That at least has been our intent. And we wanted to talk a little bit about why we were out over the winter holidays. And Dave, this is really about a project of yours. Why don't you tell listeners a little bit about it?
All right. Yeah, so when we finished the season, it was kind of serendipitous because it was at a time where I have an original project that was getting ready to just figure out like what we were going to do. We needed a recording, and we were looking at putting together an EP. Had been throwing around some ideas, but we really wanted to take the winter time to get serious about it.
Yeah, and this is your band, Vamos.
So it's called Vamos, right? You could check us out at vamosband.com. That's on the internet. Or you can call Paul
Unlike
directly.
Other websites.
You can call Paul directly and he'll tell you where it's at.
I'll type it into your computer for you.
Paul's phone number is 555. No, and it was really kind of neat because Paul and I got to spend a good part of last year together just talking music. Some of it we did behind these microphones.
Right.
And some of it we did even outside of these microphones.
It's funny after this, like we weren't sick of each other after doing 40 episodes of or whatever. We were like, we haven't had a fist fight yet.
You would think there would be at least one fist fight.
Yeah. Or like a food fight, something would get thrown.
Or at least like no music talk, but no. So we were lucky enough, like it's just the way everything aligned, and that Paul and I were really kind of in this project mode where we were getting so much done right? Like you and I were in this kind of task mode of
Yeah, we had this groove going for the podcast, and like we got together every few weeks, and we laid down episodes, and
it's almost as if the podcast season ended and we just kept rolling, and we just had this like thing that kept going. So basically, so we talked with Paul and decided to record our first EP with Paul in Paul's studio.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the genesis was when I heard you say, "Hey, we're looking to record." And I don't think it was a thing where like I don't think you were like kind of looking for me and saying, "Hey, Paul, we want to record," wink, wink. It was really, I mean, you mentioned it was kind of offhand. We were having another conversation, I think, and you said the band was looking at trying to do an EP of original music. And, this podcast has been great, but one of the things that I've been really intent on doing more of over the past couple years has been to do more recording.
Right.
I had a song that I wrote that was in a competition not too long ago, where it was like, write a song and record it, mix it, and get it whatever production ready or whatever in like 30 days. And I did that. And it did really well. Like I basically, like, I'm trying to, I'm not trying to inflame myself, but I won the prize for the, and it was basically a bunch of gear and stuff, which was fantastic. No one doesn't like having some extra gear.
Right.
But, I was trying to kind of like earn that. In other words, like, okay, if I have this stuff, I need to be doing something here. Like I need to be doing something with it. And the podcast has been fantastic, and I love doing that, but I really wanted to do something that was more, it was going to be go a little bit deeper. Right. And that's when we had that conversation. Yeah. And I think I said, it was literally as simple as, we could record that here, and meaning, I laugh and joke about the, the Practical Bass headquarters or whatever, but essentially the home studio here, like let's record it here. Right. And that was kind of what I pitched to you was, okay, you guys could go down the road to another, some other studio, not naming any names because there's a few of them around here. You can go to this place and you're going to get a good product out of them. Right. And, you're going to pay something between, X and Y for that probably. Depending on what you want to do and how prepared you are, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And I said, I'm really looking to break in and do more of this. And as a favor, like this would practically be a favor to me. Like it was so selfish. It really was. It was like, I really want to do this, and I'm asking you guys to help me out. Yeah. Right. I would really like to be doing this. And so like we can do that at basically no cost to you guys. I want the experience of doing it. And if I'm going to do it, I want to do it with some people who are friends. I don't want to do it with like some strangers. I'd rather do it with friends. And that way, if it goes well, everybody, like all of us end up better off. We're all better off at the end of it. And if it doesn't go well, you guys haven't paid for it. There's no love lost. And at least as friends, I know you're not going to walk out of here and go like, man, we're never going to talk to that guy again. Or if anybody asks us about that dude, holy moly, whatever. Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to do podcasts with them next season. That's
awkward.
Good for you guys. No, but the truth of it is that we started in with just like this idea of, okay, we're doing an EP just to like, it could be a demo. It could just be something that we're using to like book, right? Other gigs. Yeah. It definitely turned out to be like something that we hold near and dear to our hearts, right? Because there was so much put into it. And it definitely was like serious enough that you actually came up with a studio name. Like that's a big deal. That's a drawing the line.
That was kind of fun where we were like, oh, well, once it became clear, hey, we're really working on this. It's going to be a CD. Yeah. And I didn't want it to say recorded at Paul's house.
Right.
So yeah, we named the studio. We have Fifth Dominion Studios now, which is
That's right.
named after, I don't know how obscure that is. It may not be very obscure. It's a reference to one of my favorite novels from when I was, young and silly and impressionable and in college. It was a Clive Barker novel that I loved. And so, yeah. So Fifth Dominion, and also the Dominion's nice because it kind of Virginia. Right. It always makes me think of Virginia because the old Dominion, right?
Yeah.
So calling it Old Dominion Studios just sounds ancient, right? But
right.
Like Fifth Dominion is like, well, there must have been 4 before this that weren't as good, right? So this is the fifth one's the charm.
You nailed it. You definitely got it. Because there's never a 6th. Well, sometimes there's a 6th, but very rarely in the history of iths.
If this studio
gets 6th.
If this studio gets demolished, like literally, which would be my house gets demolished, then I will build a new studio. The sixth Dominion. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Dave, what was describe for you, like what the project was going to look like and what your goals were. Like, what were you trying to attain in the project?
Yeah. So Vamos is it's an all original project, right? It's a group of 4 guys, and we've been working on the project for a while, but it's been a process of getting everything exactly right, the way that we want it to sound. It has influences of I guess early 80s kind of indie rock, but also has these Latin influences that come in. There's a lot of textural kind of synthy sounds that bleed in. And for, our goal was basically to come out with of the number, I think we have finished off right around 22 songs. And of those 22, we wanted a solid 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That was the goal. We wanted them in a platform that we could, use for booking, but also use for, at this point, really for us to put something out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You wanted that, something that was really representative of what the band was about. And, I remember going to some gigs, right? I mean, I love going to gigs that you do anyway. I mean, it's one of the things Dave and I, like to be supportive in the local music scene, not just of each other, but, I actually seen this band and really liked them. And I think that for me, sealed the deal. I was like, I mean, I would have done it anyway.
Sure.
But enjoying the band as much to me, that was there's no way I can't do this. Now I've got to make sure that Dave is I got to whatever string that I have to pull to make this happen. I really want it to happen. Right.
Yeah. Which is super cool, right? Putting all of their technical stuff aside to have somebody that's actually interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Exactly. And so, you went to the gig, wrote some, I even wrote down some songs. And I think at least one of those we ended up doing. I think it was Don't Have Enough Time. Yeah. That was the one that I pegged that one as that's single worthy. And there were a bunch of them. That was one that stuck out. But as we went through the process, I think we found a lot of these were the strength of the songs was, and I think that's the thing that really got me is I've always loved songs, and you guys have songs. It's not just jams or something like that have evolved. It's songs. They have structure. They've got meaning. There's intensity in the lyrics. There's a rise and fall to them. And all of those things were, for me, that was really what sealed the deal. I have to do this. Anyway, I don't mean to re-wax the car over and over, but I'm saying what, so just to kind of orient the listeners, the reason that we wanted to talk about this, I think, was because, Dave was coming into this situation as a bass player. He's recorded before in different places, and, he's done different groups. He's recorded different albums and different CDs and so forth. I also have done that, but we were in a very unique situation here, which was, we're friends, and I am somebody who is a bass player who is approaching this project not as a bassist, but from a different point of view. And I am also hosting right? One of my friends who is a bass player, and it was an opportunity for many things to go either very right or very wrong, right? And so Dave, when you were walking in to this process, right? You came in the first day or whatever for our sessions. What were you most worried about at that point, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah. I've got two answers, throwing a curveball here. So the first thing for me, kind of like on a more intense level, really was that I've been working with you for the past year, so I understand what our workflow looked like as you and I.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, just as it happens to many of us,
like the two of us doing Practical Bass, just
right.
the two of us.
Right? Yeah. And, but, just as it happens in so many music situations, is all of a sudden I'm taking a different role.
Yeah.
And my role now has changed, is that, it's really that I'm bringing in other musicians.
Yeah.
Whatever our roles are in this place, I just happen to be the band leader in this situation, right? Because I'm the connecting point.
Right.
And it's like, I know how we operate. I know what our efficiency level is. And I know that, like, my band maybe has certain efficiencies and also lacks certain efficiencies, because that's what makes a band. Right.
So you're on the inside of that band dynamic.
Right.
That you know well.
Right.
And it's completely separate from the thing that we do here at Practical Bass.
Which is another dynamic that I'm inside of. Right. And kind of connecting those points, that was a big worry for me.
Right.
I'll get to the other part. But the second thing that worried me also was, like being a bassist and having somebody that's doing the recording that's also a bassist that I respect it's an interesting place to be. Guitarists get it all the time, because a lot of times you find that, the recording engineer, the people that are in the booth
this guy plays guitar and he's really good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so common, but to have that from a bass perspective, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I got to be at my best. It was more that it was just making sure that I was fully aware that I can put trust in, like, your feedback.
Yeah.
Paul, does this sound all right?
Right.
What is this? Like, I'm inside my head. Tell me how that is.
Right. And
letting go.
There were definitely songs where we had, a conversation about the part, and sometimes it would be, you laid a takedown and you're like, here's what I'm feeling like, from where we are in the process, here's kind of where it's leading me. And maybe it's not exactly what I expected, or, sometimes it was just the simple matter of, do you feel like that works? Like this particular part, was that working? Once it's, when you get in the studio.
Yep.
And I've said this, I know we talked about this many times, but I've said this to other people. I've said this to young musicians that I've worked with. Not to put you, you're not a. I mean, I'm
like a medium.
You're
young.
youthful.
I'm young at heart, baby.
You're super young at heart. I mean, but I mean, like,
I don't have as much hair.
This is something that I would like. I think that I would try and let musicians who are just starting out kind of know, is that, you really find like all the little cracks and the little cracks in the pavement or the little holes or whatever, the little spots where the paint's chipped. You find that in the studio. That's where every little thing has the potential to become a big glaring thing.
Right.
And it's very easy to miss those things in rehearsals and in live gigs. And suddenly, you're under like a microscope, right?
Yep.
And so from my perspective, it was my job to make sure, because I am I'm not participating in this as a bass player or as a bass only advisor.
Yeah.
But it was my job to kind of make sure that you felt good about what you were doing, and that the parts that you've worked a long time on, that we get like the best representation of that.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah. In fact, the very first session we had, we basically knocked out the drums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was actually amazing.
Yeah. It was like that was like the all day thing, right? Because we started this essentially with a weekend of rhythm section.
Yeah.
Right?
Like 2 12-hour sessions.
Yeah.
And we knocked out the drums, and really it was like the drums and me.
Which was too long, by the way. Right. We knew
in hindsight.
There are many things we found out. I just want to point out, like, we're going to talk about things, and I don't want anybody to get the idea here that we're like, if we talk about something that transpired, I don't want anybody to walk out of this thinking that is the way that you should do it.
Yeah.
Now, some things we did worked out very well, and I would do them again. Some of the things we did not work out as well, and I would not do them again. And I would say one of them is the length of the session the first day. Like, everyone was very juiced up about trying to get things done. And, there is a point at which you can't be effective anymore. And there's a reason that recordings are typically not done that quickly. And when you hear about great recordings that were done, like, a lot of it was done in a very short amount of time. It is the exception that proves the rule. Like, it's either magic or it's fueled by amphetamines or I don't know what, right?
Whatever's going on.
And none of that was happening here. Like, everyone was pretty much on the straight and narrow here because we were all about the work. But anyway,
although there was really good lunch.
There was really good lunch every day. Yeah. That is a hallmark of partnership, I think. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off off track, but
these are great. Yeah. I mean, and they're all a part of it. Like, they're all the solutions. And, for me, I think, when I look at, kind of managing how everything went, I think a big part in both topics was really like kind of letting go a little bit and asking you, like, taking those points, even like in our when I had to redo all the bass lines, like having those sessions that were just you and I.
Yeah.
Like bassist to bassist, but you're in a different role.
Yeah.
Stopping, like, and just saying, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, it feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
This doesn't feel right. What's going on? What can we try?
Yeah. And that was super rewarding because we got to really we really took apart and dissected some of those parts and it was enjoyable doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I felt like, okay, I'm like holding out the trampoline or whatever. Like, you can walk the high wire and know that somebody is below you with a trampoline.
Right.
And they've got you, like, it's going to, no matter what, this is like, we're going to work it out. And whatever comes out at the end, like, you're going to reach the other platform.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and on the other role, like, of the managing the band, right, as a whole, for me, getting through that was really about just keeping communication going.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just about like talking with my bandmates and being honest about.
And here's the part where yeah, I mean, you guys who are listening, you're going to hear a lot of this because, Dave and I really enjoyed this. You're going to hear a lot of car waxing, but here's where I get to like wax Dave's car a little bit because I got to see Dave operating in a different light. Like, I got to see you operating as a band leader and like making sure the communication was clear and that, when we ran into, a couple snags here and there, that all got communicated very clearly to people and expectations were managed. You really, like, I really saw you working at the level that made me appreciate not just what you bring here to the podcast, right? Because we conduct this as a very, a very professional enterprise, right? Back and forth. We plan things out and we schedule, et cetera, et cetera. And watching you do that with your bandmates and kind of take that lead, for me, that was I loved watching that. And I thought, I love watching somebody who puts, it's not just talk, right? You walk the walk with your band. And I loved watching that. I loved seeing that and seeing how it worked out in practice. And so I can now feel super confident about the kind of things that we talked about in Practical Bass season 1. We talk about those things, and yeah, you could think of them as theory, but I watched them practiced in front of me, not by me, but by somebody else. I watched you put them in practice, and every minute of it, I'm like, yep. Oh, there's episode 12. Oh, what do you know? Oh, there's episode 21 at work. Yep. Oh, there you go. Episode 5, not that these are the numbers, but watching them come out, I thought, this is how this looks. When you execute this stuff, it works out. And other people notice. In this case, the other person was me. Right. I was actually getting the benefit of that by having people come in at the right time, having people come in who were, they knew what to expect, and they knew what was expected of them, and things in general, really, really worked out. So, I think that I want to address, I think maybe the same question. I think it would be fair for me to kind of like turn the light. I asked you a question to start all this off, right? Which is what were you worried about? And I want to I'm going to turn the light back on myself because I feel like that's fair, right? I'm not going to put you on the spot like that.
Right, because you would have had your own concerns going into this, right? Actually, if we really look at it, you were the one who, you are venturing into newer territory than us.
It was, I've recorded myself, I've done my own songwriting and recording, but I've not had, it's been a long time since I recorded another band, and I've never recorded another group with the intention that this is going to be a marketing, this is a marketable media that's going to come out of this. I've done pre-production work for people. I've done, a couple garage level recordings for friends, things like that. Stuff that was essentially favors or throwaways or whatever, but this was actually really intended to do something. And, so for me,
and with the relationship that we have too.
Yeah.
There's a human element to it that it's we work together all the time.
Yeah.
Now we're going to record.
How am I going to get Dave back over here to do a Practical Bass again if I completely screw the pooch on this, right? So it was the first time doing it for people other than myself. And so it was also, I think a big part of it for me was it being about your songs. And I don't mean in the same sense that I mentioned earlier about loving the songs. It was about, these are your art. These are things that you guys have composed. Yeah. You've put words to, and in some cases the words are very meaningful. They're very intimate. Right. And I wanted to honor that, right? And make sure that stuff gets the respect that it's due. And to have a relationship with an artist when you are doing something like recording them or producing is to make sure that you are helping them understand it's safe for them to fully express all of the parts of that in the studio. And it may mean talking about specific words or phrases that really matter to them. It may be about a musical part, which came about through some very long, dialogues or fist fights in the rehearsal room or whatever, right? This is the thing that needs to I'm walking into the room after 2/3 of the battles have been fought. Right. So understanding that blood has been spilled or tears or sweat or whatever the bodily fluid is, right? That's all happened. And so coming in and respecting that was really important to me. And, and some of you guys had done recordings before. And so I wanted to give you that same or a better feeling of safety and respect, and freedom, right?
Yep.
And then I think the second piece of it, right? I've got 2 parts to this too.
That's right.
The second part was making sure that I had my chops together and the gear together to make sure that you guys weren't like at some point twiddling your thumbs, waiting for me to be ready for you to do something. Right. Like that was, that was the thing just as worrisome for me was the idea that like I wouldn't be ready to capture an idea, or, oh, hang on guys, I'm trying to figure out, oh, there's something wrong, I'm not sure what it is.
Right.
Like we may have had like one moment like that and that went on, but I don't think there was a lot of it.
There wasn't. And in fact, a lot of the time, honestly, like whatever that waiting period was of like wrestling with technology, I mean, we're antsy musicians, right? Like, so we find like side conversation and we want to talk about what just happened or whatever that is, you know?
Like there's a moment that you want to like understand or dissect or whatever.
Yeah. It all went completely like any hesitation of time spent in the studio was like completely unnoticed on our end because we're like, you have to reel us back in.
Like, hey guys, are you?
Yeah, okay.
You ready?
You ready? Come on.
But it went okay. I don't think that ended up being an issue at all. I think we were all on the same wavelength. So, getting all those things together for me, it was, I tried to do a lot of work ahead of time, sorting out gear and cables, connections, testing lines, and this is the part where we're getting very practical. Hopefully, like this is going to be kind of the payoff for the practical bass listener. Is I thought through in my head, tried to lay out every moment in the studio, not every single moment, but the moment of pressing record, and thinking about how are things going to be laid out? Where are people going to be sitting? What's going to be mic'd up? Where are those mics going to sit? What about all the cables that are coming from there? How are they going to hook into my equipment? What length of cables do I need? Are there adapters that are needed in order to get me from this place to this place so that I can do an effective recording? And literally thinking all of that out. I'm not going to lie. I got a pad of paper and I started sketching that out for myself from beginning to end, thinking about what does this look like, and then when I ran it through my head, thinking here's the gear that I have. Is there something that I'm missing? And I did discover along the way. I thought, you have to you've got to know your gear. You have to look. Here's the back panel where things are going to be hooked into. What kind of connection is that? Oh, it's an XLR connection here. Or, oh, it's a 1/4 inch balanced connection, but my mic cables are XLR. How am I going to get from one to the other, right? So thinking all of those things through for every single connection and every single thing that was going to happen in the studio ahead of time, I did visualize it. And I'm not trying to be like aggrandizing. I'm just saying I think this is the meat of where you really start to, if you're not a professional studio that has all this figured out already, if you're doing this in a home studio as a working bass player, you're part of a band, you want to record, this is the level that you want to get to. You want to think through the process before you ever hit record or before anybody comes to your house. You want to think about, where is everything going to sit? What mic is going to be on this stand? Do I have enough stands for everything? Okay, once I have those, do I have all the mics I need? The cables that come out of the mics, where are they going to go? Do I have the right connection for them to go into? Right? All of those things that you think out are going to contribute, I think, to success. Yeah,
it's very much like, practical bass, practical music, just a way to think through before you execute. And we talk a lot about different topics within what we do in our bass life. And like, this is you carrying it out into like studio life, right? Where it is not like fly by night. It is definitely not like you're just winging it. Like, I spent a lot of money here. I've got good software. I've got good hardware. I got a bunch of cables. It was not that. Like, what it was instead is like me with my bandmates who they all have experience recording. They all have years behind them, and them leaving like the whole session of like, yeah, Paul's on it. Like, he knows what he's doing. And I know from my relationship with you, that's because it's the work that you did beforehand.
Yeah.
Like the planning and the foresight of like what could possibly go sideways. How do I prevent it if it, like, how can I fix it if it does go there? How can I prevent it from going there? All of those pieces.
Yeah. So I don't have any like military experience, but I've known a bunch of Marines in my life. And like, there was a thing I heard from several Marines that I know is the 5 Ps, right? Prior planning prevents poor performance.
Right.
Right. So that's really the idea. If you can live that no matter what you're doing, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at that. That's the 6th P that, gets left out because no one's perfect. But, if you can do that consistently though, things will work. And so,
right.
and it wasn't just that. I mean, I also like, in a way, I mean, I did some cramming too, right? Just because of, whether it's, just insecurity or just, wanting to be as good for you guys as I could.
Yeah.
Did a lot of reading. I watched a lot. I'll be honest. I watched a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
Just to check my approach. I actually picked up a couple tips along the way. It was great. Again, I wasn't a practiced recording engineer or producer, but along the way, I kind of was able to understand that either like validate my approach,
right?
Essentially, like, here's what I'm thinking I should do. Does this seem right?
Right.
And a lot of times it would be, yes, that would be the right way to go. I got some ideas along the way. Oh, here's an even better thing I could do. Or, maybe this thing isn't right. I could do something else instead. And again, just kind of try and be at as top of my game as I could. And I think one other thing I wanted to mention is, I don't think we would have had as near as good an experience as we did without the preparation of having a friend my friend Rich Nagel.
Yeah.
He came in and he basically assistant engineered that whole weekend session. So he showed up. You guys came in Saturday morning. He came in Friday afternoon.
Right.
And we set so much up and tested lines and just making sure that little things were not going to interrupt the process, for stupid reasons like, oh, this mic cable doesn't work. Why am I not getting a signal on this line?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you don't want to find that out when people are ready to play.
Right.
And he came in and like, we got all of that done the night before. And so people showed up Saturday and, we were ready to go.
Yeah. And that's like, if you're ever going to take on, to me, like that learning lesson was that if you are going to take on another project, if you're going to take something big on that's outside of what your normal base life looks like.
Yeah.
It is like, it's totally not wrong to bring in somebody.
Yeah.
And to have a second set of eyes.
A team. I mean, there's a reason that real, like, the big studios, it's never one guy doing all the work.
Right.
It's always a team.
Yeah.
Right. And, that way you've got somebody to kind of double check you. You've got an extra pair of hands, people who are there to kind of support what's going on and get things done. And, we had him there the whole first day of recording. And, I feel like that was a big reason why things went as well as they did, because we didn't try and like, lowball it.
Right. Yeah. No, he was actually super crucial in that process.
Yeah.
And it made me think about like, even in big other like music ventures that I take on, if there's a big gig or whatever, like sometimes it's all right to grab another bandmate and say, hey, you're my co-pilot. Like, you're going to be the person with me this whole time. We're going to tackle this together.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're that person that takes all of it on, it's too much.
Yeah.
Like you're dealing with too many aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of variables going on and whatnot. And, the same thing I think goes for your role. We talked a little bit about, the walking in part, but, in the process itself, what I guess I think it would be interesting, and we're not going to pull any punches here. I think we're both very comfortable with how things went, and things that went well, things that went not so well. What did you like? What did you expect during the process, and how how did that play out? What did you expect coming in as a bass player, and what did you end up doing?
Yeah, I guess going into it, I mean, I was very focused on, I spent a lot of time beforehand just working on my bass parts, right? Just that literal, working on the bass piece, working on the music, and also making sure that I was a band leader toward what the structure of these songs are, right? Because the songs have structure to them. Yeah. And for me, I wanted to make sure that everyone's keeping on, within that form. Yeah. Because we're a band of original music, which means we change it every single time, right? That we get together, we're constantly improving it.
Things evolve. Yeah. As you work through them.
Yeah. Yeah. But the left hook in this whole process was basically that, that I could lean on you as a producer and that you could actually change it. Right. And that I could let go and that we could let go and kind of let it be that situation where not only are we in there to record and be perfectionists at exactly what we're trying to pull off, but also that we have to be open ears, open eyes, and asking for feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And allowing that, you felt this comfort level where you could say, do you really want this to happen? Let's explore that further. Did you try doing this?
Yeah.
And getting to that point where really what it turned out to me more, the whole experience was about kind of co-producing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so you made an interesting point here, which I think was kind of the surprise in the process, I think, for everybody. I mean, I think definitely for you and me, because we were really kind of deepest embedded in what was every moment of what was going on. I think, I was there for obviously the whole thing. And, I think out of everybody, you were really the most present for basically everything that went on. And that was as expected, because you were playing these dual roles, right? Of trying to, lead and coordinate the band side.
Yeah.
But also be the bassist, the bedrock for musically what was happening. And so I think that was the big surprise for me. Yeah. Was this role that I ended up taking on. I mean, at first, I think when we got started, I very much wanted to be clear about, in my own head, right, about what my part was that I was playing.
Right.
And that part to me was to make sure that we get things recorded. Yep. And that, we get a good mix of these songs that you guys had done. And that was it, right? That was really my role.
Yep.
And as we went along, I think we discovered there were certain things that happened musically that, I knew, right? Yeah. When I heard them, I'm I knew that something wasn't happening that was what you guys planned. Right. Or, for whatever reason, the architecture of it wasn't clear in the song.
Yeah.
And I think after having one or two of those things happen where, I kind of raised my hand and said, do you guys mind if I ask a question about this, or let's look at this, put it under a magnifying glass for a minute. And I think after a few of those, we realized that it was actually helpful, right? My worry was going into that was not wanting to inject myself into a dynamic that I wasn't part of, right? I'm not a band member. And what I think we discovered is the band actually benefited from having a producer, right? Co-producer in this case, somebody as an independent ear to say, hey, this sounds like it's working. Yeah. This maybe not so much. What can we do here that would be clear about intent and honest about what you guys want from that song, but is going to work when you listen to it 800 times in a row. Right. Because what you don't want to hear is you don't want to hear things that you oh, I wish we'd done something else. And then you hear it 800 times in a row and then you want to like shoot yourself in the head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was really about
Like the first time you hear it after the fact,
yeah.
post-production, you're like, oh yeah, we should have thought about that.
Yeah. We really should have done something different there.
Somebody should have like called somebody out on that piece.
Yeah.
You know, one of the really like neat things in this whole process for me was you and I had a conversation after one of our podcasts, really about like your direction toward the podcast and other aspects of music. You know, how we focus a lot of our attention on the working basis, like the gigging musician.
Yeah.
And the irony is that like the podcast for us is also like this way of still being in music.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not hustling, not carrying 35 to 60 pound rigs, not like dealing in a bar, right? Not having to do all this stuff that we talk about.
Yeah.
And you are, you know, very good at finding projects and developing ways to still have that passion and be involved there. But it was super cool to like see this thing unfold and for me to like for it to hit me like square on and think, oh man, this is Paul like being fully involved in music in some like in a very strong fashion without like hauling out a rig at 2 a.m. out of some bar.
Yeah. It was a different kind of commitment and process. And yeah, that was something I enjoyed. Right. That was my big revelation. And I've talked about this to many of my friends and loved ones since we did it.
Yeah.
That, you know, that is the surprise to me was how much I enjoyed being outside the dynamic of the band per se, but brought in for specific work and to do certain things and to like bring a different skill set and a different kind of mindset and make those things happen to show other people in the best light possible. And it kind of like combines a bunch of the things that I love doing in my day career, honestly. Like I'm a manager in my day job and it's not really ever about what I can do personally at the level that the team that I manage can do. They are way beyond my skills and abilities. And what I can bring to that is maybe just a sense of, you know, cohesion or coordination or asking questions sometimes, like bringing things together, bringing people together, even just spurring discussion and making sure that the right answer, everybody, you know, it comes out and everybody agrees on it and the right direction is what we, you know, pursue. And that applied so much in this job. It was like, I had never connected those. Like I really thought that life was so separate from this life in music and this hobby, you know, because I consider music just as much a part of my life. If you know, losing music would be like losing my job, in my mind, And I mean, they're that co-important in my brain.
Yeah.
And I think seeing those things come together for me was like a unifying moment where I just realized, oh my gosh, like this is the thing that I feel like I understand and I have the capacity and the skills and the willingness and love and passion for doing it. It was that like that aha moment of, you know, this is definitely something that I want to do again and again. And, you know, I would say if we, you know, just to tie that back to the, you know, the purpose of this podcast for Practical Bass, you know, I really appreciate our listeners hanging in there with us because, you know, I think you know, we've probably stretched on a bit about a passion project, but I think the point that we want people to leave with is that as a bass player, you play bass and you play a certain instrument, but you are a musician around that, right? And in general, you are a musician,
Right.
You're a bassist, a specific kind of musician, but you are a musician first. And maybe even before that, you're a human being and you have other talents and you have other skills and passions. And those are the things that we are also trying to integrate in this podcast and help you kind of understand how you can be better at a lot of things and be able to bring them to like a larger scale of what you want to accomplish, right? It's not just hauling the rig in and out at 2 a.m. like you said, and, playing your part. It's what can you do that is going to bring you musical fulfillment, right, for the rest of your life?
That's right.
Well, so that seems like a great place to wind up maybe for tonight. I mean,
I love it.
I really enjoyed, I mean, the project that I was blessed to work on over this winter time with Dave and his band it was fantastic for me. I hope that everybody out there in our listening audience had a chance over the break to do things that mattered to you as a bass player, as a musician, that you got to really exercise something in yourself and maybe integrate that in as part of the whole of what you bring to this, wonderful world that we live in. And, that you really got to really stretch yourself to do something new. And hopefully we will help you do that over the course of this season as well. And so if you would like to keep up with us, if this has energized you the way that our winter energized us, we hope you'll keep up with us on practicalbass.com. You can give us some feedback. Go to the feedback section on the website and you can send us some email. Dave and I read every email that we get. It comes straight to our inbox and we always read everything. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We try to acknowledge everything. It's not always instantaneous, but because there's a lot going on, but we do try to get back to everybody who sends us email. We would love to hear ideas. If you've got things that you would like to have us cover in a podcast, we'd love to hear from you as well. You can also visit our Facebook group. We have a Practical Bass Facebook group. There's also a Practical Bass page on Facebook. You can find the group through the page and vice versa. You can find the page through the group. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Practical Bass. And we'd love to hear from you there if that's what you prefer. You can pick up a weekly edition of this podcast starting this week. Whether you are on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or just about any podcatching application, simply do a search for Practical Bass, and you can find our friendly black and white logo, and using the subscribe link or button with your app, you can get a fresh weekly copy delivered straight to you. It is absolutely free now and forever. And we can't wait to hear from you, and we can't wait to hopefully spin up another topic of interest for you next week, and hopefully take your gear and your gigs to the next level. And until then, I'm Paul Fields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
This has been Practical Bass.
Thanks for listening. And I'm Dave Guzman.
You're early again.
Wait,
David,
from where is that ending?
I've told you once, I've told you twice. No, there's no and to start the podcast. The podcast does not start with and. We don't do that.